Hey guys, welcome back. Tisha here, back with another 50 Years and Polygamy chapter read. Let me start off by saying thank you all for joining me. If you can do me a favor and like the video, I'd greatly appreciate it. It helps me in the algorithm. I'm going to apologize in advance for any noise you may hear. It is the weekend while I'm recording this, and it's nice outside, so the neighbors are playing music and the kids are outside, and I don't want to wait to do this because I want to enjoy some of this good weather as well while making sure that I deliver content. If you have not joined me before for one of my book readings, let me warn you, I mispronounce words, I get tongue-tied. There's a lot of things that go on while I'm reading. If I pronounce something incorrectly and you feel inclined to, feel free to correct me down below. I do not take it personally. I struggle sometimes with the way things are written and the way they come out of my mouth and the way they're in my mind. But I still appreciate you for joining me despite, see? I'm proving my point and I'm not even reading, despite my flaws, okay? So let's begin with chapter 3. And this is going to be years 1947 through 1952, like a piece of dirty garbage. Eleanor's second child and mom's sixth were born in July 1947 as Uncle Rouland's family quietly disappeared. Now remember, I believe Eleanor is the other woman. That's the other wife, the younger wife, the wife that was significantly younger than the mom. Everyone knew better than to ask questions. One rule of thumb was, if you don't know the answers, you won't have to lie when you're asked. Some weeks later, Dad informed his families he planned to move them to Dayer LeBaron's ranch in Los Porcales, Mexico. The LeBaron brothers had offered a place of refuge to polygamists on the run, and that's where Uncle Rouland had moved most of his wives and children. My dad felt certain the ranch would be a haven for his family, and Mexico would be a warm and welcome retreat from his painful bouts with rheumatic fever and rheumatoid arthritis. In anticipation of the long trip, Dad borrowed an old milk truck from Eleanor's father and fashioned a makeshift bed behind the driver's seat. He installed 2 wooden seats that ran the length of the truck on each side and a pop-over canvas to cover the whole bed of the truck. Okay, so this man is very crafty, because who thinks to do that? I wonder how comfortable that was, though. Okay. On August 8th, Dad departed Salt Lake City with Mom, Aunt Eleanor, their 8 children, and one of Uncle Rouland's wives with her 5 little ones. For 6 long, hot days, they were packed in the truck like sardines in a can. Arriving in Old Mexico, they found there were only 2 types of weather: torrential rains and blistering winds. Uncle Rouland had already begun building adobe homes for his families, or is that adobe? Adobe or adobe, I'm not sure, y'all. Adobe, homes for his families. Tents were set up for Aunt Eleanor and Mom. Their babies were allowed to sleep in Maud LeBaron's home to protect them from the thousands of nagging flies. Oh no. I can't even stand the sound of a fly when it zooms past me. She just said thousands of nagging flies. Within weeks, several more families arrived in the barren, dusty parcel of the desert that quickly became known as Tent City, a refuge from perceived persecution. By November, Mom, Eleanor, and their children once again shared a home. This one was made of adobe. I hope I'm saying that right. I kind of want to look it up. The best part of their house, Mom once told me with a smirk, was the crisscross broom straw designs they swept across the hard earth floors. You can imagine how long those entertaining designs lasted, she jeered. On each side of the tiny family room, which also served as a kitchen, was an 8 by 8 foot bedroom, and each of these was a 2 by 2 foot window that couldn't be opened, but let in a few rays of light. The rest of the family, scantily belongings, stole every inch of their meager space. Food was prepared in the tiny kitchen and served outside in the dusty, fly-infested yard. As more and more refugees arrived, food and other commodities became scarce. When Mom could no longer breastfeed Shane, Annie LeBron, who lived a mile or so up the road, offered Mom some of their cow's milk for his bottle. It's funny that we're talking about this, right? Because the other day I was talking with a coworker, and she was telling me how her supply for her son, like she was struggling to the point where she's only able to do like a bottle for the whole entire day. And I think back to when I had my son and how easily I filled up bottles upon bottles, like I had a steady supply. And I was saying how I got grossed out because my son's father tasted it. And she was like, well, we're willing to taste cow's milk, so why are we so grossed out by sharing breast milk? And it got me to thinking, but it still gives me the heebie-jeebies. But it's true. Now, I don't really drink a lot of cow's milk. I eat it, but I don't drink milk. I do almond milk. I've never liked milk. Okay, y'all, let me get back to the book. Over time, Mom and Annie became close friends. At that time, neither of them imagined Annie's young daughter, Marianne, will become my father's third wife. Are you freaking kidding me? See, this is the problem that I have a lot of times with polygamy, is that you set these women up for failure, especially the original wife, because it seems like each wife is younger than the last. So, of course, there's going to be some jealousy or some things of that nature when you keep getting the newest penny, the shiniest penny, and here I am aging and being barren at times when that's the expectation for me to keep producing and being there for you. And here you are getting a much younger wife. It's ugh. One hot day, Dad and several other men on the Dare Ranch cleared a tract of land overgrown with mesquite. After heaping the wood into 3 huge piles, Dad lit a match and watched the timber go up in flames. Others who had wandered over to see the bonfire soon found themselves in a festive mood. Before long, food seemed to appear from nowhere. Families offered whatever they could to spare. And throughout the night, members of Tent City and the Dare community sang and danced on the hard crust of earth until the wee hours of the morning. By then, the reflection of the glowing embers glistened on the brightly colored ponchos covering the children who'd fallen asleep on the huge tarp a safe distance from the fire. Thanksgiving and Christmas Day celebrations were much like the bonfire day and night, full of joy, laughter, and praise. To earn a living, my father set to work building furniture. He volunteered to build new benches for the students at the Galena schoolhouse, which was packed to the rafters with polygamous children. He also pitched in to help some of the classes, which didn't pan out very well. Even with his good intentions and his 4th grade education, his obvious lack of training in the teaching profession and his inappropriate sense of humor got him ousted. 4th grade education, teaching students. 4th grade education, being the head of the family. Not that this wasn't done previously, and I guess I got to take into account the years that she's talking about here, but that just goes to show you the lack of education that was happening within the community and how much power was given those who lacked that education. Laundry days proved to be a nightmare. 37 women had to share the only well on the property during the 6 laundry days before the Sabbath. They observed the Sabbath? Water was boiled in huge tubs over bonfires using homemade Lao soap. The women scrubbed each piece of clothing up and down on rippled sheets of metal and wooden frames. Finally, the clothes were rinsed in vats of cold water and hung over long ropes tied between trees. I did the whole hand washing thing on them things, and I'm so grateful that I came up in a world where I didn't have to do that. I know back home, that was a thing that my mom and my dad and various family members had to do. And when I tried it out, I was like, oh, there's no way I would want to do this. Like, none. On rare occasion, really lucky days, the women's laundry dried and was retrieved before it became cake-like with mud from the dust and the rainstorms. I wonder how that stuff smelled. Cause even now, if you hang up your clothes on a laundry line, it has that outdoor smell to me, and I can't stand that outdoor smell. As February neared, Dad decided to return to Utah to find work. Just before he had to leave, Shane came down with a serious case of pneumonia. Mother told Dad she desperately wanted to return with him. Most importantly, she could get Shane to the hospital. She also hoped to spend some time feeling like his only wife and his only love, at least for a while. But Dad betrayed my mother again. Oh no. Don't tell me he brought the same woman who was messing up stuff before and now is going to bring her and show her favoritism yet again. Let's see. To avoid his guilt for giving in to Elle's pleas and demands, and to avoid Mom's tears of anger and desperation, he waited until Mom was nearly packed and ready to go before he gave her the devastating news. Mom thought she'd never speak to Eleanor again. It was bad enough she felt Eleanor had already stolen her husband and her soul, as well as most of her time. Now she wouldn't even consider Shay's need for quality medical attention in the States. None of that mattered to Elle. She'd already made arrangements for herself, my dad, and her children to stay in Murray, Utah, in a comfortable apartment above her father's garage. So even though this woman's son has a bad case of pneumonia, you're not going to let her go and make sure that her son is okay and he gets the right medical attention. You're going to instead arrange something for you and your kids, not considering your sister wives' child. Ain't no way. There's no way I could be a part of this. There's no way I could be a part of this. Things were getting crazy. Some of the LeBaron men and those who had fled to Mexico, Joe LeBaron, began to demand praise and adoration, claiming to be the one mighty and strong and everyone's new priesthood leader. In Utah, Joseph decided, although fundamentalists were still not safe in the States, moving back would be better than the poverty in Mexico and the conflicts there between the LeBarons and the other brethren. Joseph directed my parents and other families to return home and count on the Lord for protection. Mom and her children had been in Mexico for 9 months before Dad brought them back to the States in May 1948. He settled them in his sister's basement in Farmington, Utah, while they waited for a house 2 miles down the street to become available. Mom thanked God every night. Their primitive standard of living had been short-lived. Yet even during the most difficult experiences in Mexico, she was grateful she had time to read her scriptures and form a few lasting friendships. In the fall, Dad moved Eleanor and her children into the top floor of Mom's rental home in Farmington while they waited for a furnace to be installed in the new home my father was building for Eleanor and Murray. The LDS visiting teachers became suspicious of the living arrangements. My parents were quickly summoned to visit with the local state high school's council. The council questioned them about their beliefs in plural marriage and asked them to deny any affiliation with anyone living in polygamy. Mom and Dad had no choice. They passionately defended their convictions and were subsequently excommunicated from their much-loved Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Mom told me, I cried off and on for months after that day. From the time I was a little girl, the LDS Church was an integral part of my life. When they excommunicated us, I felt like they punctured my heart and discarded me like a piece of dirty garbage. In the spring of 1950, Dad rented an old farmhouse in Draper, Utah, about 18 miles south of Salt Lake City. Mom, Dad, and their kids loved it there. Being typical boys, my brothers Luke and Daryl managed to burn the chicken coop down with some matches they found. A short time later, Luke and his new buddies got in trouble for chasing the neighborhood chickens and breaking their eggs. Oh, I bet you did get in trouble. Breaking eggs. It was there in Draper my older siblings got to know Mom's mother, Myrtle Cook, a little more. Whenever possible, she left her FLDS community in Short Creek, Arizona, to visit and give Mom a hand. My mother's lifelong friends, Cleveland and Annie LeBaron, and their children also moved back from Old Mexico. On one of their visits, shortly after Cleveland brought his daughter, Marianne, to Utah from Mexico, she'd run away and married an abusive man. Now she was left with a 4-year-old son to look after. Cleveland told my parents when they lived in Los Porcales, Marianne thought the world of Dad's family. The bottom line, he wanted Dad to consider taking 21-year-old Mary Ann as his third wife. So this young lady was in an abusive relationship, was her friend's daughter, got away from that, has a child, and now, even though her friend is already struggling with one wife, you want to add another one. Gracious, goodness gracious. In general, fundamentalists deemed it priesthood bearer's duty to prayerfully consider marrying his brother's widow or any other woman who asks for his hand in marriage. My dad once told me if the prospective husband says no, he better have a darn good reason. So he had to say yes? One paragraph in my mom's journal about her sister wife says, this was from January 1951. Marianne and Owen were married today, after which we stopped at Brother Pollard's store to buy groceries. Brother Pollard says, Owen, you look like you just came from a wedding. Owen didn't reply with words, only a smile. For nearly 2 years, turmoil had been brewing among the men of the Council of Friends. It was rumored ever since Joseph Meusers encouraged Uncle Rulon and several others to secure an early release from prison. Those who chose to carry out their prison terms became critical of their priesthood leaders' discussions. Some felt Mercer had misguided his followers, and over time, Mercer suspected many of his high priest council members had commandeered unrighteous dominion over their cohorts. Muser claimed many of his council members in Colorado City and other places had been trading young daughters and sisters in marriage. I just don't understand how it is that these people feel like women are property and they're really treated like that. Sometimes girls as young as 12 and 13 were coerced into marrying older men they didn't know or love. Mother said when Joseph Mercer advised these men to stop their their abominable behaviors, they responded with criticisms such as, Joseph doesn't know what he's doing. He's just a senile old man. John Barlow passed away in the latter part of December 1949. Joseph Muser continued to plead with his council members whom he felt were insubordinate. He begged them to repent and support his decisions, or he would have no choice but to bypass them and call a new council. He eventually did. There was a tremendous amount of opposition when he called Uncle Rulon to be his first council. Those who had upheld Barlow until his death began to claim Leroy S. Johnson as their new prophet. My family's version of what both fundamentalist groups called the split was told over and over during my years in polygamy. The Alred Johnson, LeBron Kingston, and independent polygamous clans all had opinions of how, who, where, and why. No matter whom we followed, who we were, or where we stood, everyone claimed to have the real truth and the most accurate documents and information as proof. Regardless of exactly how it happened, the split created the later known as the Episcopal United Brethren, or simply the group to its members, and the Short Creek group, still the two largest fundamentalist polygamous factions in the United States. The division brought heartache, torment, and disaffection between families and friends. Some men and women within these groups continued to interact with each other by simply agreeing to disagree, while others became bitter and non-communicative. Many men in the Short Creek group forbade their wives and children to have any contact with those dreadful Alderites. Grieving brothers, sisters, parents, and friends strove with all their might to persuade their loved ones to change their hearts and minds. If only you would fast and pray longer, harder, you will know who the right and true priesthood leader is, they would plead. It all made more sense to my mother when she found out several years later why her good friend Alice quit coming around and didn't marry my father. Okay, let's see what it is. Mother sadly reminisced. Her father had lost respect for Owen, Uncle Rulon, and Brother Muser before and after the split, so he forced Alice to marry another man. So she didn't even have a choice in the matter. She was told what she was going to do, and Alice had to do it. Alice told a dear friend who told the story to Mom. One morning, Alice was awakened and told to get to her wedding dress and come downstairs. Since many young girls didn't know when they would be called to marry, sometimes at a moment's notice, they already had a wedding dress in the closet awaiting their wedding day. Like most Short Creek FLDS girls, Alice had no idea who her husband would be until the last minute. She screamed and wept in protest, telling her father she was in love with Owen Alred and still wanted to marry him. Completely disregarding Alice's desires, her father locked her in the room and told her to fast and pray until she got the right testimony. So, other words, you're telling me to fast and pray until I get the right testimony? A lot of these girls probably didn't even get a testimony. Their conscience probably forced them into feeling like this is what they had to do because they had no other choice. Then she could come out to stay. Ultimately, Alice must have received the testimony her father wanted her to get. My 13-year-old sister, Lucinda, wanted to stay close in contact with her friends, with the friends she made in Short Creek before the split. My parents trusted my mother's parents, the Cook family, to keep her safe while she spent a good portion of the summer in Short Creek. During her summer vacation, Lucinda fell for Wayne, a handsome and already married 21-year-old man. When she confided her girlish infatuation to her grandparents and friends in Short Creek, they encouraged her to get married right away, claiming her parents would never give their permission for her to marry into the then Barlow group, so she must do it now. Wayne, her grandparents, and friends all told her she couldn't let anything or anyone prevent her from carrying out God's will. Back at home, Lucinda set about asking Dad for permission to marry. Though Dad wanted her to finish high school first, she continued to beg, argue, and persuade. Finally, Dad said if she still wanted to get married after she turned 16, he would give his consent. My mother told me sometime in January 1952, the year I was born, Wayne called to ask Dad if Lucinda could go down and stay with Grandpa and Grandma Cook again. He said it would also allow Lucinda more time with his family so they could get to know each other better. Wayne promised Dad, as a brother in the gospel, he would take proper care of his daughter while she was away. Even after many years, Mom looked faint as she told me, but the next time Lucinda returned home from Short Creek, she told us that she and Wayne had gotten married and had consummated their marriage, which had been sanctioned by their prophet, Leroy Johnson. I don't think my sister ever told Mom who actually performed her underage polygamous marriage. Then, the legal age in Utah was 14. My parents were distraught and angry. So wait a minute. You promised this man that you would do right by his daughter. For whatever reason, he let his daughter go away just for you to go behind his back and have a marriage at an age where she wasn't even legal. Even with the recent conflict between the two groups, they couldn't fathom the idea men they once loved and revered would stoop so low as to steal their innocent young daughter and marry her off without their knowledge or permission. They asked Uncle Rulon if they should have Lucinda's marriage annulled, but when they approached her with the plan, she stood firm, emphatically warning them not to try to keep her away from Wayne or they never see her again. Because she was brainwashed and she was in love, and when we're young and dumb, we think we know everything. Mom's devils were driving her mad. Devils are in quotes. It seemed her family was being blown to smithereens. That's because you sat there and listened to that false prophet that told you that this was the will, that this is what you were supposed to do. So as a result, your family line is going to continue to pay the price. Eleanor's self-involved behaviors, Dad's inability to be fair, the anguish Mom felt from her daughter's childhood marriage, and Mom's confusion as to which man on this earth held the keys to the priesthood, all these threatened her values and her salvation. Mom prayed, fasted, read the scriptures, and prayed some more. With renewed strength and conviction, she recalled the promises Joseph Muser had made in her patriarchal blessing, and after quite some time, the Spirit of the Lord returned to her. The Spirit's much-needed survival message would carry her forward. Your basement house will soon be furnished and paid for. Your baby will be a girl. Your family will have the food and clothing they need. And dear Vera, your daughter, Lucinda, will go through much tribulation, but she is married to the right man to receive her prosperity. And what is her prosperity? A bunch of babies? I'm confused. And why does all of good that happens to women just have to be with the tribulation of them and not the tribulation of their men? I'm just wondering. On March 30th, 1952, my dad moved my pregnant mother from Draper into Mary Ann's cramped 4-bed bungalow. Dad needed to use the rent money from the Draper home to help build Mom's new basement house, which would be just down the street from Mary Ann and Eleanor's homes. So this first wife doesn't even have her own home, but all these other people do. Got it. Soon, 9 children and 2 wives were packed into Marianne's tiny home. Dad's overnight stays were quite infrequent but joyous. His kids gathered around him to eat popcorn and listen to his jokes, songs, and adventure stories. The days ended with family prayer. Dad said he didn't need any blanket since his horde of children wrapped him with their arms and legs and poked their knees into his ribs. They kept him warm, wide awake, and smiling. Soon, Dad poured the concrete foundation for Mom's house. While her home was under construction, Dad's sons and brothers also built a bridge over our 5-foot wide creek, graveled our long driveway, dug a cesspool and lined it with rocks, and drilled a well. By the first week in September, Mom's 3-bedroom basement home was completed enough for her and her 7 children to move in. So you're making this home and it's a 3-bedroom, 7 kids. So half the kids in one, half the other. Okay. I guess that's not unthinkable. I'm acting like that's not something that happened in my family. Not in my family, but like in my mother and my dad's family. As always, Mother considered it her righteous duty and sole purpose in life to share, serve, and give to everyone. She would never allow herself to consider her own needs or desires before anyone else's, especially her husband's. Therefore, it came as no surprise to anyone when she consented to Dad's latest request. She would share her new home with Mary Ann and her 2 sons. She would share her 3-bedroom home with her 7 kids. Now Mary Ann's going to move in too, which means 2 of the bedrooms are going to be occupied by the adults and the other by the kids. She just got the bad part of everything. I feel so bad for her mother. No wonder why she opens up this book with her mom crying. I really was happy to be in our new home. Mom assured me later when we moved in. I began to sink my roots and feel like we'd at last be safe here in Murray. But more than anything in the world, I look forward to having you, Sophia, my darling baby girl. She smiled at me tenderly. Oh, how truly blessed we were. And that is the end of chapter 3. Y'all let me know what you think about chapter 3. I was going to do 3 and 4, but I'm not going to rush this. I'm going to take my time on this so we can marinate on it. And we have plenty. We have plenty of book left, okay? I'll see you all next time. I don't know. Because this week, I'm only supposed to be releasing these videos for the book on Tuesday and Thursday. But because of how many chapters they are, and because so far I'm actually enjoying this book, I may give you all 3 of these this week instead of the 2. We'll see. Y'all will see. If you haven't done so already, please like the video, comment, and subscribe. And until next time.